Today I fucked up by accidentally unplugging my fridge before leave for a 3-week trip to Brazil. I have never smelt anything so awful. Before I travel I usually make sure unplug all the appliances and electronics as a safety measure. It was my first time traveling to South America, and I was pretty anxious. Because I was so anxious I was smoking a lot of weed to help try and calm myself down. I live in Canada where it is legal. I checked everything one last time before leaving to sleep that night at my boyfriend's place. I unplugged what I thought was the slow cooker. It was actually the fridge. There was some meat in the freezer which thawed and leaked into the rest of the fridge. I was gone for 3 weeks. It sat in that box at room temp the entire time. After returning home late last night my mom came over early to hear about my trip. She opened the freezer to get some ice and that's when we discovered my mistake. We both almost passed out and I vomited instantly in my mouth. The liquid that gathered at the bottom of the fridge had grown red and blue mold. It smelled like pure death. I have spent the last 12 hours scrubbing it with bleach. I have scrubbed every inch but it is impossible to get into some of the mechanics in the middle of the fridge. I have made a little progress but it still smells so awful. I currently have left it with 5 boxes of baking soda, and a few bowls of vinegar to try and kill the smell. As well I am burning odor-killing candles non-stop, praying that I will not have to tell my landlord as I am not in a situation where I will be able to pay for a replacement. Needless to say I feel incredibly dumb. Too long didn't read. I unplugged my fridge by accident before leaving for a 3-week vacation to Brazil. Came home this morning and discovered the rotten meat and resulting smell. Have been trying to clean out the smell all day. Update. Thank you for all your advice and stories. I truly tried everything I could. I have however accepted my fate and forfeited my damage deposit for a new fridge. Going to go smoke a blunt now and hide from the world for a bit. You'll never get that smell out. Time to get a new fridge. This right here. Trash the fridge. I used to work on boats in Florida and one owner decided to use a chest freezer for bait on the covered back deck. Well, water got into the plug and tripped the breaker and no one knew. So a freezer full of ballyhoo bait fish thawed and sat in the Florida sun until the next time someone decided to go fishing. The smell. If I had to choose between opening that thing or crossing a minefield, I'll chance the mines. You need to get a bag of charcoal. Like barbecue grill charcoal. Rip a hole in that bag, clean out the fridge, and shove that bag in there to let it work its magic. It will take a few weeks to work, but if you need it to not smell like death it's an option. I saved a chest freezer this way. It lost power and everything spoiled. It took 2 bags of charcoal, and about 3 weeks. Seconded, except get powdered activated charcoal. Much faster. So what happened to the slow cooker? Hee it is fine. I am a dumbass. This is why, even high off your ass, you should always triple check what you're unplugging. I made a similar FU once. I got halfway to my destination when I realized I had left my oven on at a very low heat. Thankfully, my parents were able to get into my apartment and turned it off after I called them, frantic that my apartment was going to burn down due to me being an idiot. I realized I had left my oven on at a very low heat. The fuck? Are you using your oven as a space heater? You savage? I discovered a freezer similar to this at work. Plugging it in really helped kill the remaining smell off, after I'd done all I could. Not sure if a fridge would be the same, but I'd try turning as cold as possible overnight before buying a new one or anything. It's not just the smell, it's the rot, the bacteria buildup. Today I fucked up by forgetting about NSFW hardware in my car. Obligatory. This was actually a decade ago, but it still haunts me. Also, this is my first post, but long-time lurker. TL, Dr. Below. I had my first child very young. She was maybe 2 at the time of this FU and I would have been early 20s. Her dad and I are both nerds but on different sides of that spectrum. He loved Star Wars, so much so that we might have even been dressed as characters from the movie when she was conceived. That's probably important later. So one day I'm driving to go visit my best friend who lives 2 hours away, all highway. I start to hear a funny noise coming from my car, and I'm like, great, of course this happens now. I was pretty sure I knew what it was. There was a plastic piece underneath that I had knocked loose and knew that it had been randomly dragging. So I pull over like a moron on the shoulder of the interstate to look, hands and knees, underneath my car. That piece is loose but not dragging and I don't see any other issues, so I get back in the car. Start to drive again, the noise comes back. Let me backtrack and say that I have worked at the same place since I graduated high school and my co-workers are literally my family. One of the older women I work with had recently been on a trip to California with her old ladies read the smut book club thing she was in and came back with gifts. So we are all crowded around and she gives another girl like a jar with some sand in it, and another person some other beach related thing. She turns to me and says, I'll give you yours later. I like to think I'm a good girl, lol, but my kid's dad ruined me and I got a little wild after I had her. I also have a very amazing ability to just pick the most horrible but hilarious people to date or sleep with. It's a gift. Like the gift she gave me. Which was a gigantic pink vibrating dildo. This thing needed a pull start. It had rotating beads, a swiveling head, I'm pretty sure you could make it hot or cold. This thing was unreal and I was terrified of it. Also, why the fuck did you go to California, and you bought Lisa a bag of sand and you thought I needed a giant dick? I'm still not sure why, but I also couldn't ever use it because I'd think about her and she's not my cup of tea. So I put it in a bag and put it in my trunk never to be seen again. Or so I thought. I had wondered why everyone on the interstate was looking at me like I was insane. I thought it was because they could see that my car was about to explode, so they were telling me with their stink eyes. No. My daughter was using the giant vibrator as a lightsaber in the back seat and slicing all the other cars. My car wasn't falling apart. She just had it on turbo blaster gutfuck mode. No idea how it got out of the trunk, but I made sure it found a home in a dumpster. TL, doctor friend bought me giant vibrator. Daughter used it as lightsaber in the back seat while driving down the interstate, earning me my Mother of the Year trophy. After reading the title, I imagined a dick-shaped gear shifter or a vagina-shaped keyhole. I was thinking like hardware store hardware, like a little box of assorted dick-shaped screws. Oh, your friend weirds me out. Also, Turbo Blaster Gut Fuck Mode is probably the funniest thing I've heard all year. Turbo Blaster Gut Fuck. Now you gotta figure out for what other purposes it could have been, in case your daughter asks you some years later. She doesn't remember, but she's a teenager now and I've told her the story and she can only say, wow, my love for Star Wars sounds unhealthy lol. Daughter, oh, you like some of this. Today I fucked up by trying to break into someone's car. Today I was leaving the mall and walking to my car. I walked to the passenger side to unlock the car because my driver's side lock is broken. As I bent down to unlock the door, I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat. I was very confused, but my knee-jerk reaction was that someone had broken into my car. I shouted, "Hey! Excuse me," and tried to open the door. The guy's expression was bewildered. After about 10 seconds of confused shouting on both ends, it dawned on me. I turned around, and 2 spots away, hidden behind another car, was my car. The two were identical. I apologized profusely, but I was so embarrassed that I don't actually know how well I conveyed my mistake to this poor guy. Too long didn't read. I thought someone else had broken into my car. Turns out I was the one trying to break into his. Oh ho ho, you just reminded me of the time when I owned a 1994 Saturn SL2 and accidentally committed Grand Theft Auto. One of the kinks with those cars was that when the keys got worn, they tended to open and start. Well, any 1994 SL2. I was at the supermarket and someone had won the identical shade of teal that mine was, also just parked a couple of spaces away from mine. I put my groceries in and left the parking lot. I kept wondering why my car smelled so different and the driver's seat was so far back. I then noticed it had an entirely different stereo faceplate, and about 100k fewer miles on it than my car. I banged a U-turn and parked it as close to my car as I could manage. In my hurry to get out of there before getting charged with an accidental felony, I left a 12-pack of ginger ale in the back seat. I wonder if the other guy ever figured it out. Someone broke into my car, drove it for a few miles, and then left me a 12-pack of ginger ale as a payment. Are there any folklores about elves that do this? Don't feel too bad. I've sort of been on the receiving end of this before. I was waiting in the car while a family member ran inside a grocery to grab a few things, and a guy casually strolled up and got in the driver's side. He gets his hand about halfway to the ignition, notices me with my mouth probably wide open like who the hell are you, and his eyes just get huge. He looks at me, the car, his surroundings, and you can see the panic on his face. His wife was in their car, one space diagonal from us, watching it unfold and just dying laughing. In his defense, our cars were similar. He barely said 2 words, quickly hopped out of our car and into theirs. Poor guy. It was initially scary. I was a kid at the time, but as soon as I saw he was just as worried as I was, and his wife laughing, it was alright. Ah yes, nothing like a good old bamboozling. I was taking my friend home from work one day and it was pouring. I was pulling up to the doors and saw her hop into another grey Honda Accord. Apparently she got in, snapped the seat belt in place and said, "Let's go, bitch." Before looking over and realizing she got into a random 60-ish woman's car, she just yelled "oh shit" and got right back out. I laughed so hard I peed my pants a little. I once walked out of a convenience store and got distracted by a pretty lady. My brain misfired and I walked to the wrong car while still regarding the attributes of said lady. I walked past the car's owner in the process. I opened the door, looked down, realized the guy was looking at me, said out loud, "This isn't my car," and scurried off to my car as he locked his car.